Hey there. I'm really glad you've decided to check out my video today. And if you feel like subscribing, that'd honestly mean a lot to me. Let's jump right in. On a cool Washington morning, Evan Caldwell adjusted the cuffs of his dark blue shirt while golden light poured through the kitchen windows, catching on the polished stone countertop. At 36, Evan worked as an architectural engineer, disciplined, reserved, and drawn to structure. Order made sense to him. And for nearly a decade, that sense of order had included his wife, Sabrina, at its core. Sabrina, 2 years his junior, was his opposite in nearly every way. Charismatic and effortlessly eloquent, she had a way of turning heads without raising her voice. As a strategic communications director, she was an expert at sculpting perception, and she knew it. Together, they had constructed a quiet, visually pleasing life that looked flawless from the outside. Their minimalist condo overlooked the shimmering Puget Sound. Mornings were spent slowly sipping coffee together. Music playlists were exchanged like handwritten notes. It all felt serene. But Evan was about to learn that peace can be a mask. It began with something simple, a throwaway comment over toast. "I'm grabbing dinner with someone from work on Saturday," Sabrina said lightly as she spread jam on her bread. Evan paused with his coffee halfway to his mouth. He didn't frown or flinch, just listened. "Dinner?" he echoed casually. She didn't lift her eyes. "Yeah, just catching up, nothing major." He nodded mildly and took another sip, outwardly unbothered. Inwardly, something shifted. It was the lack of eye contact that set off the first alarm. A small thing, but Evan noticed small things. He didn't interrogate her, didn't push back, just said, "All right." But deep inside, a quiet tension curled up and waited. Her voice didn't sound evasive. It sounded calculated, emotionally detached. That evening, after she stepped into the shower, Evan approached her laptop. He knew the password, her childhood cat's name combined with their anniversary. In seconds, the illusion of their life cracked open. A message thread, one name repeating Malcolm S. Previewed lines said enough. "Can't wait to finally be seen in public together." "You looked amazing last week. Hope the husband's still in the dark, Lowell." Evan didn't shout, didn't panic. He read every word, absorbing them like blueprints. He closed the laptop gently and stood at the sink, gripping the edge. The air around him was suddenly heavier, pressing against his chest. But he stayed silent. Confrontation wasn't his instinct. He preferred precision, quiet unraveling. That night, when Sabrina slipped into bed and offhandedly said, "You're quiet tonight," Evan turned to face her with a serene expression. "Just thinking," he replied. "Might be time I met some new people myself. Balance things out." She paused, a fraction of a second too long. He saw it, the small clutch of her hand beneath the pillow. "Oh," she replied, measured. "You mean dating?" "Not exactly. Just keeping doors open," he said easily. "That's how it works these days, right?" She let out a quick laugh, thin and uncertain. "Right." That was when he saw it. The anxiety tucked behind her composed face, not obvious, but there, buzzing under her skin. In the days that followed, Evan subtly changed. He began rising earlier, started running again, bought clothes with cleaner lines and bolder fits, changed his cologne, picked up a book on influence and persuasion. Messages from Malcolm kept coming. Evan never mentioned them. He played his part, let her believe her performance was still working. But while she moved pieces on one board, he was building a second game entirely. No revenge affairs, no angry confrontations. That wasn't Evan's way. He planned. He contacted a family attorney he'd once collaborated with professionally, quietly opened a new account, redirected his paychecks and insurance policies. Then he reached out to someone from Sabrina's past, Miranda Howe, her former college roommate, the one Sabrina always rolled her eyes at for being too conservative. What Sabrina didn't know was that Miranda, wine-drunk at a gala years ago, had once confessed feelings for Evan. He'd never acted on it. Until now, he invited her for coffee, framed it as a friendly catch-up. But Miranda understood the moment she saw him. "What's going on?" she asked. stirring her drink with a cautious look. Evan leaned back, fingers interlaced, voice calm. I was wondering if you'd be open to helping me show someone what real consequences feel like. The coffee shop hushed around them. Miranda watched him carefully. He looked the same, but colder, more exacting. You're not joking, she said after a beat. No drama, no mess, just clarity. You're sure she's... She lowered her voice. He handed her a slim folder, printed screenshots, identities obscured, messages unambiguous. She flipped through them, raised an eyebrow, but stayed quiet. I'm not looking to humiliate her, he added. Not in the social media way. I want something more. Lasting. What do you mean by lasting? I want her to believe she's safe, then feel it all slip away, the way I did. Miranda exhaled slowly. All right, I'm in. Back at home, Sabrina sat on the couch with a glass of wine, absent-mindedly scrolling. Her thumb paused on a photo. Malcolm at a networking event, smirking in an unbuttoned shirt. She glanced at her messages. Nothing from Evan. No comment on the photo she posted. No "how was your day" text. Not even a reaction to her dinner plans. That wasn't like him. He could be quiet, yes, but never absent. She opened their shared location app. Still linked, still showing his office, but unease settled in, like something had shifted while she wasn't paying attention. Later that evening, Evan came home carrying a small bouquet. Daisies. Her favorite, but modest, understated. She blinked, confused. What's this for? Just thought you could use something cheerful, he said, placing them on the counter. She relaxed a bit. That's sweet. He gave her a soft smile. I had an idea. How about we do something different this weekend? Her eyebrows lifted. Like what? There's a retreat near Tacoma, not therapy, really. More like a reset. Activities, some fun, some reflective. Could give us a clean slate. She hesitated. You want to go to couples therapy? Not therapy, he said easily. Just a different kind of weekend. Her thoughts spun. She'd already said yes to dinner with Malcolm. But now this? The foundation she thought was stable was beginning to shift beneath her. She'd even gone as far as booking a room in advance, but when Evan veered off course unexpectedly, she stopped mid-thought. Absolutely, she said quickly. That sounds amazing. He moved closer, a faint smile tugging at his lips. Perfect, I already sent in the RSVP. She pressed a kiss to his cheek, and for the first time in weeks, he didn't shy away. Not because he trusted her again, because he wanted to leave her unsure. The retreat was nestled in a secluded lodge, wrapped in evergreens and the soft aroma of cedar drifting from stone hearths. Couples mingled for group activities, drawn-out exercises designed to test loyalty and collaboration. During the first group session, Sabrina gave a nervous giggle. Evan gave her hand a gentle squeeze. Through the honesty workshop, he never let go. And when it came to the trust fall, she caught him with steady arms, like old times, like nothing had broken. By the evening, a glow returned to her face, something dangerously close to happiness. I missed this, she said in a hush. Evan looked at her. Missed what exactly? A pause. Us. His lips curled into a slight, almost pitying smile. It's always the easy parts we long for, the part before it all went wrong. Her face tensed. That's harsh, but not a lie. She didn't push further. That night, they slept in the same bed again for the first time in nearly a month. There was no closeness, only a shared quiet. One pretending they'd found peace, the other pretending to carry guilt. Back in the city, Evan began moving in silence. Carefully, methodically, he compiled everything, screenshots from her cloud storage, a shared Dropbox labeled Our Memories, which Malcolm could access, hotel invoices, GPS data placing 2 phones at the same address over 5 separate weekends. The final piece? An audio snippet from the smart speaker in their living room, recorded during a blurry, drunken midnight slip. Of course not. Evan has no clue. He copied the file to a flash drive, then gave it to Miranda. She was already in motion, whispering into ears at Sabrina's office, dropping quiet seeds of suspicion. Odd how often she's flying now, isn't it? Didn't she used to be terrified of planes? By the time Sabrina noticed it, the way greetings cooled, the shift in smiles to guarded glances, Evan had already met with a lawyer. Every document drafted, signed, waiting, but not yet delivered. He still had one final step. It happened that Friday night. He booked a table at a rooftop restaurant. Sabrina arrived, dressed stunningly, eyes bright with cautious optimism. He rose to greet her, pulled out her chair, ordered her favorite wine with gentle familiarity. "I brought you something," he said, reaching into his jacket. A small box. She took it, eager. Not a necklace. A flash drive. "What is it?" she asked, puzzled. "Proof," he said softly. Her chest tightened. "Proof of what?" He leaned forward, voice calm and unreadable. "Proof of who you've become, and of how good I've gotten at playing a game I never asked to join." She stared, hands beginning to shake. "What are you talking about?" "I gave you space," he said. "I trusted you, forgave you. You used that time to lie." "That's not fair." "I know about Malcolm," he said, even, inevitable. The air between them shifted. The facade fell. Her eyes dropped to the flash drive like it might burn her. Frozen. "You went through my things?" she asked, voice cracking. He didn't flinch. "You handed them over. You just didn't know it." She opened her mouth, but nothing came. He stood. "Enjoy the wine." "Evan, don't—" She reached for him, but he was already walking away. Jacket slung over one shoulder, a man finally done carrying weight that wasn't his. That night she didn't sleep, didn't cry. She moved restlessly through the apartment like it was foreign. Because deep inside she knew. What had just ended wasn't only a marriage, it was something deeper. By Monday, Evan was gone. No messages, no returned calls. She reached out, silence. Then came an email. Cold. Legal. Director. Subject. Intent to separate. Her stomach dropped. The phone slipped from her hand as she fumbled to read it again. This wasn't a threat. It was real. Frantic, she called Malcolm. He answered casually. "Hey, babe. I need to see you now, please." A sigh. "Look, maybe we should slow this down. I didn't sign up to wreck your life." She blinked, stunned. "But you said this was worth it. You said—" "I said I have a career to protect," he interrupted. "I'm not throwing it away for someone who promised her husband would never find out." Then the line went dead, one betrayal collapsing into another. Evan, meanwhile, sat just blocks away in a quiet cafe with Miranda. He watched Sabrina's name light up on his screen. Let it ring. Let it fade. "She's unraveling," Miranda said, sipping her coffee. "She should be," Evan murmured. "But this isn't revenge, this is clarity." "And when it's done?" she asked. Evan stared out the window. "Then she'll finally know what it feels like to disappear." Later that week, Sabrina stepped back into the apartment and knew instantly that something had changed. Evan's presence had been erased. His clothes, his guitar, the books he revisited every spring, all gone. Even the framed honeymoon photo had vanished. Only one thing remained in his office, a folder. She opened it. Inside, signed divorce papers. Attached to the last page, a yellow post-it. Neat handwriting. "You made the choice. I just finished it." She sat down, shaking. Her eyes scanned the room, searching for a trace of him. Nothing. Not even the scent he used to leave on the pillows. It wasn't colder by temperature, but by absence. The kind of cold that settles deep in the bones of a place. She wandered from room to room, unsure if she was cleaning or desperately chasing fragments of what used to be. She called him. Voicemail. Called again. Still nothing. The man who once texted just to say thinking of you had gone completely silent. But the real final blow didn't come from his lips. It came when she opened their joint bank account. Access denied. She stared in disbelief, tried again, still locked out. Panicking, she clicked into their shared Dropbox, where years of documents, travel records, financial notes had lived. Emptied. Frantic now, she searched her inbox, typed his name. There it was. An unread email. From his attorney. Dated 2 days ago. Every shared asset was now under careful inspection. Any attempt to conceal or transfer marital property would be tracked, and ultimately presented to the court. Her hands trembled. This wasn't just him leaving. It was as if he was erasing her existence. 3 days passed before they saw each other again. Not at the apartment, not in front of a judge, but inside a coffee shop, with Miranda, laughing. It was that rare kind of laughter he once reserved just for Sabrina. Head tilted back, palm resting casually on the table, like he had finally found where he belonged. Hidden behind her parked car across the street, Sabrina observed. She watched as Miranda's fingers grazed his wrist, and Evan didn't flinch or pull away. It wasn't the touch that tore at her. It was the message behind it. Evan had discovered a version of himself that no longer included her, and in that version, he looked unburdened. That evening, something inside her cracked. She drove to their old apartment complex, only to find the entry code had been changed. She collapsed onto the front steps and sat there until a neighbor called security. When she returned to her car, her face was blotchy, her complexion drained. Inside the glove compartment, she found a photo from their second anniversary. Evan's arms tightly wrapped around her middle. That photo had once brought her comfort. Now, she couldn't even look at it. She folded it in half, then again, and again, until it was a mangled square she shoved to the bottom of her purse. She never pulled it out again. Evan didn't brag. He didn't post updates, didn't share their story with friends. He didn't need to. The silence spoke for him. Because sometimes it's the quiet that delivers the deepest blow. Because restraint can cut sharper than revenge. And because the most definitive act is leaving when they were certain you never would. Their court hearing came with the first hints of spring. Sabrina wore a blazer that felt stiff, shoes that pinched. She needed to appear composed, unaffected, as if she hadn't been hollowed out from the inside. But when she entered the courtroom and saw Evan, calm, tidy, unreadable, she immediately felt smaller. Not because he looked furious, because he didn't look at her at all. His attorney handled nearly everything. The division of assets had already been settled. Evan had relinquished the condo, the car, even their travel fund. Not out of defeat, but because he realized those things no longer held meaning. He was claiming something deeper, his peace, his self-respect. And now, he had both. Outside the courthouse, Sabrina tried to catch his eyes. She spoke softly. "Evan." He paused, turned just enough to acknowledge her. "I never meant to lose you," she said, barely holding herself together. He waited a beat before answering. "You didn't lose me, Sabrina. You traded me." Then he walked away, not in anger, not in bitterness, just finality. The months crept on. Sabrina dated. She went through the motions, but each smile felt forced. Every conversation echoed emptiness. The men could sense it. She wasn't really there. Part of her was still caught in a moment she never truly controlled. Malcolm had disappeared, quietly let go after a discreet HR inquiry, likely prompted by an anonymous complaint. He never answered her messages again. Colleagues who once looked up to her now exchanged knowing whispers as she walked by. The woman who used to have it all was now left with fragments. She still showed up, at dinners, at work functions, at family gatherings, but the light behind her eyes had gone out. Because each time she saw a man laugh softly, reach for someone's hand across a table, or open a door with quiet care, she thought of Evan. And it stung. Evan, meanwhile, had moved past resentment. He found comfort in routine, early jogs by the waterfront, evenings finishing books he'd long abandoned. He started mentoring at a nonprofit for architecture students and picked up teaching at a local college. He wasn't rushing forward. He wasn't dwelling on the past. He was simply creating something new, on his terms. Miranda never pushed. She gave him space to heal at his own pace. They shared morning coffees, aimless strolls, and silences that felt whole. Sometimes that was all he needed. One evening, sitting beside Miranda as the sun sank beneath the water, she turned to him. "Do you think you'll ever forgive her?" He sat with the question for a while. "Forgiveness doesn't have anything to do with her anymore," he said at last. "It's about me deciding not to carry what she shattered." Miranda offered a quiet smile. You've changed. I had to, he said. Pain doesn't leave you untouched. It either destroys you or wakes you up. He looked out toward the horizon, where the sky kissed the sea. And I'm finally awake,